This is Travis Wayne Goodsoe. As the video has now reached 2 hours, and I just finished the pre-Latter-day time period, what leads up to the Latter Days, it seems more appropriate to stop here and make this the pre-event video. And I'll have to change the name for that purpose. So understand that this is part 1 or part 0, the origin story, or whatever you want to call it. Travis Wayne Goodsoe. As it is apparent that the majority of my subscribers are dead, and thus the current viewership is for the most part fairly new, and by that I mean the past year, therefore I guess seems necessary to do some reviews for you to try to catch you up on what I've been up to for the past 5 years, though I've been on YouTube for 7 years. I have the other channel, Travis Wayne Goodsoe. The church ordered YouTube to stop me from making videos on that channel right before the war, because they knew they needed me to be silent. And so let's go over the latter days, as that's what my title currently sits at. We'll go through all of the signs in the heavens that have been fulfilled on earth to this date. We'll go over the characters involved, so that you will have an understanding of what's going on. So, as Mormon or ex-Mormon, you should be aware that the scriptures talks about the latter days. And if you're wondering at this point, are we in the latter days? Is this it finally? Does the war in Ukraine have anything to do with anything in Scripture? Oh my goodness, we've got a lot to catch you up on. So, in Doctrine and Covenants, section 39, verse 23, talks about those who get baptized with water, lay your hands, and receive the gift of the Holy Ghost, and they shall be looking for the signs of my coming. So there's one character we're looking for. And if you're new, my goodness, it's not who you think it is. And shall know me. And so the signs in the heavens are supposed to help educate you as to who you're looking for. Behold, I come quickly. Even so. Amen. And there are people in the church who say Amen. No, guys. Amen is a different spelling. Stop it. Cut it out. You think you're being smart, that you know things that other people don't. You don't. Just cut it out. So in Joseph Smith translation, Revelation chapter 12, verse 1, And there appeared a great sign in heaven in the likeness of things on the earth. This is a pattern for all signs in the heavens, not just for this one. How do I know this? Well, we're at halftime. What do you think I've been using as my test case this whole time to identify the various characters that are involved? And so this is what I've been looking for and checking on all this time. So I'm well aware of who each character is and what they've been up to this date. And so it is important to therefore know that in Revelation 12 you see that there's this child who is born. You see a dragon, and then in 13 there's a beast, and it's kind of confusing because these are symbolic coding in the text. This is what's called apocalyptic literature. So what you see here is not real, it's a symbolic code using story form to talk about it. So the lamb, for example, it's the man-child that you saw being born in verse 12, and so the beast, you need to know who the beast is, and the fall of Babylon. Babylon already fell with the Persian Empire. So what is this future Babylon? Because the Doctrine and Covenants, section 1, verse 16, likewise takes their cue from Revelation, as the Book of Mormon does too. We are an apocalyptic church, Latter-day Saints. There's a reason for this. Let's see. I'm looking for the one that talks about the false prophet, because he's the other one major character that's involved. There it is. I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. So there we have dragon, beast, false prophet, and the lamb, the man-child, the Christ. And so we now need to figure out when. We know the characters. How do we establish when the latter days are? Well, you need signs in the heavens giving star dates. And wouldn't you know it, Revelation 12 gives us some. There are others as well. And so just I'll quickly summarize it here in this introductory part. This is going to be a massive undertaking for me. We'll do them in segments. We'll go over each one at a time, etc. But Revelation 12 has 2017 as the beginning date, the start of the latter days. Revelation 19 has the ending date for the latter days, 2024. So it's a 7-year period of time for the latter days. And so now we can go through and put the pieces that have already happened in perspective for you. And so, like I said, We're going to go over each one of them piece by piece and help you with the identification of each of the characters so that you won't be confused, because it's necessary. There's still the other half, which actually is only 2 more years. We're in 22. 2024 is the end. And the millennial reign of peace is supposed to start. So, now, this is obviously going to be a very long video. So pull out your popcorn, or whatever it is, your ice cream, and we'll get going on this. Okay, so in Joseph Smith history, we get down to May of 1829, when we are told that John the Revelator comes from out of heaven and puts his hands on Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery and ordained them with the Aaronic priesthood, where the verse 69, "Upon you, my fellow servants, in the name of Messiah, I confer the priesthood of Aaron, which holds the keys of the ministering of angels, and of the gospel of repentance, and of baptism by immersion for the remission of sins. And this shall never be taken again from the earth until Joseph Smith is assassinated." Until the sons of Levi. Moses is a son of Levi. I did that video. The super secret sacred lesson that the church manual skips. I did it for you. "Do offer again an offering unto the Lord in righteousness." And so John the Baptist is preparatory to the coming of Messiah, just like Joseph Smith. If you do not understand our doctrine, Joseph Smith in 1838 gave us this history to inform us of it. The first vision talks about 2 personages standing above him in the air. One of them pointed and said to the other, "This is my beloved son, hear him." Notice there's no names given. We do see that they are above the brightness of the sun. But 19, Joseph is told, "You are not to start a Christian church," and that Jesus Christ is an abomination. Does that shock you? It's right there in verse 19. All their creeds were an abomination in his sight. You, of course, studied what the Christian creeds are, so that you would therefore know that Jesus is in the first creed. The apocalyptic story about a guy named Jesus was turned into a historical character by Constantine, whose nature and character was created by Constantine with a created word by Constantine of Hamuzion. It's all in the historical documents. all Christians should know this. Why don't Mormons know this? We have the first vision that tells us about it. So if you need more help, the Book of Mormon. 1 Nephi chapter 1, verse 2. Yea, I make a record in the language of my father. So the Book of Mormon, the keystone of Mormonism, is written in such a manner as to consist of the learning of the Jews and the language of the Egyptians. Jesus Christ is not the Christ of Jews. He has his own book in the Old Testament where he takes the house of Israel across the river Jordan and does battle in the promised land of Israel. Well, Canaan, they haven't settled in there yet to designate it as Israel. That's the book of Jesus, right there in our Old Testament. The book of Matthew names their character Jesus because it's the reverse of Isaiah. Salvation of Yah, Jesus, Yah of salvation. Matthew, the author of the book called Matthew, tells us that he's quoting from Isaiah's prophecy, but the name's supposed to be Emmanuel. And so Constantine made it official. The name is Jesus, and he's an actual historical character. This is not understood by the Jews. Just so that you understand and you're not confused, because Joseph Smith prophesied that the great and abominable church will call themselves the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Section 115. Verse 4. For thus shall is future tense. So under Joseph Smith, it was not called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He's saying it shall in the future be called in the last days. Joseph isn't the last days. He says in the last days it will be called, so that we will recognize it, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You need to do your real church history. Not listen to what other people tell you. Not the church, not ex-Mormons who were Mormon, who found things and tried to harmonize what the church was saying with what they found, and were excommunicated for it. No, you need to take all the pieces together to figure out the real church history. Don't reconcile what isn't real, like what Constantine did. So what are called the Gospels are actually other books of Revelation. They just have different character names for the hero and villain names. And so the Old Testament, likewise, it's apocalyptic literature. It was written during the Roman period too. And as such, I've done the videos explaining to you how they have the patterns of the latter days. And so Joseph Smith And the Book of Mormon talks about the prophesying among the Jews, which is to use parable stories to talk about future events, using different characters in different places and different time frames to symbolize future events. Just like John in Revelation does. It's all apocalyptic literature. Alright, so trying to figure out where to go to next. Yes, Joseph Smith history again. Nephi visiting Joseph Smith with Egyptian gold plates. It's important to know the real church history and to not get fooled into thinking that they were golden. You will not understand why they're gold. And you will say, well, they're too heavy for Joseph to lift. You're missing the point. Joseph Smith is giving us apocalyptic literature of his history. None of this happened. It's a parable story using Joseph Smith now as the character. All new people. So frustrating. So frustrating. All these years doing all the research, doing all the work, doing all the videos, and I have to start all over. I don't know if you fully understand the frustration I'm going through. And so Nephi tells Joseph Smith about apocalyptic scripture. He goes over Malachi, day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and Elijah the prophet before the great and dreadful day. He talks about a passage in the 11th chapter of Isaiah and Acts, which is important because that's how we identify the learning of the Jews Christ or Messiah. He said that prophet was Christ. And to cut it short, Nephi is the Christ. But so is someone else. And then the second chapter of Joel talks about latter-day stuff too. And so let's go focus on this Acts, which the footnotes takes you to Deuteronomy. And they don't want you to know Deuteronomy for some reason. And with the new editions for the foreign language that began in 2009, it remains unknown because it's still believed that it's Jesus, despite all my efforts to try to get the footnotes changed to be corrected. And so Deuteronomy 18:15 to the end talks about, I will raise up, this is mortal man, mortal parents. This is the learning of the Jews. So it's not Jesus, created by Constantine. I will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee. And Joseph Smith is told by Nephi, that's the Christ. You shall listen to him. And I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak all that I command him. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words which he shall speak in my name, and that's where Joseph Smith says cut off, destroyed in Acts, I will require it in Deuteronomy. And then here's the other character, the villain of the story. But the prophet which shall presume to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or that shall speak in the name of other gods, like Constantine's God, Jesus Christ, of whom the name of the great and abominable church will be named. And so there's two identities now that we have. One is the true prophet, the other is the false prophet. And so let's go to the Book of Mormon to show you Joseph Smith. 2 Nephi chapter 3. Verse 6, Joseph, not Moses this time, truly testified, saying, a seer, rather than a prophet this time, shall the Lord my God raise up, who shall be a choice seer unto the fruit of my loins, and he shall be great like unto Moses, and a Moses I will raise up. And so he's talking about the three characters here. Moses from the Exodus. He's talking about a seer this time, who is different from Moses's man like Moses, the prophet, who is the Christ. And so we find out the name of this seer in verse 15. His name shall be called after me, and it shall be after the name of his father. So Joseph, son of Joseph. So I wonder who that'll be. That prophet is the Christ. The learning of the Jews is not one and only one Christ. Everyone who's anointed is a Christ, because that's the Greek word for anoint. Joseph Smith is the founding Christ of the latter days. He is the forerunner, John the Baptist, preparing the way for the coming of the latter day Christ. And so, in the Doctrine and Covenants, section 103, 15 talks about the redemption of Zion must needs come by power. 16, therefore I will raise up unto the Mormons a man. See what Joseph Smith is doing here? He took the prophecies of the Bible, which are apocalyptic literature, and the Book of Mormon says that Joseph Smith is the founding Christ of Mormonism, as the forerunner to set up for the latter days. And from Joseph's church, which will be usurped, just like Abraham usurped the birthright blessing from Pharaoh, Isaac usurped the birthright blessing from Ishmael, Jacob usurped the birthright blessing from Esau, Joseph usurped the birthright blessing from both Judah and Reuben. Reuben passed on it, and so it got passed to Judah, because Simeon and Levi in the missing chapter lessons did a naughty thing and lost their birthright blessing status as the runner-ups after Reuben refused. So it fell to Judah, and Judah betrayed Joseph. And Judah is phonetically the same as Utah. And so yes, Joseph Smith knows very well that he would be betrayed, and those scriptures are not in our Doctrine and Covenants. You'll have to search for them on the Joseph Smith papers. I don't know why the church doesn't make those known. Why don't they publish them? Add them to our Doctrine and Covenants. Why not? What's going on? Is it because he refers to the Last Supper and the the accusation of the Judas among them? Is it I? Is it I? And I'll help you out. It's in his discourse given 19 July 1840, which has to do with the latter days and ties into other sections. Section 101 specifically, the parable that he gives in section 101. Yeah, he sort of calls the Quorum of the 12 Judas. And sure enough, that branch claimed to be the successors after Joseph was dead, where 2 of Brigham Young's 12 were with Joseph in that jail, and they got shot. Hiram and Joseph were shot after Joseph chased out the mob. So Willard Richards and John Taylor were alone with Hiram and Joseph after Joseph chased out the mob. And both Joseph and Hiram are dead, and all we have, outside of the forensic evidence that everybody screws up. I did a video and somebody saw that video the other day and commented. But yeah, the testimonies, which were not presented in court, they were presented to the Mormons, they were not involved in the court trial. And the mob was acquitted of the murders because they were shot and murdered by someone else who got away with it. But yeah, like I said, if you're brand new, you are way behind. You have thousands of videos for you to get caught up on, and yeah, tragic tale, but fulfilled prophecy. And so out of the great and abominable church will come a Mormon who will lead the Mormons like as Moses. Deuteronomy 18 uses the same wording. That's where he got it from. That's who he's referring to. There is no questions, there is no doubts. It's not Jesus. That man is the latter-day Christ, of whom all Mormons are supposed to look for the signs in the heavens so that they may know him. And assuming that they don't murder him like they murdered, or their ancestors murdered Joseph Smith, he will lead them out of bondage of the great and abominable church with an exodus, just like Moses. Even so shall the redemption of Zion be. But if Mormons aren't going to believe, if YouTube is still being ordered by the great and abominable church to silence those videos of mine to keep you from knowing this information, well, we're all doomed, aren't we? Alrighty, so okay, so this is identifying the characters. So the beast refers to kings, the 4 horsemen of the Apocalypse, The horsemen are beasts on the horses, and they have crowns. And so crowns are for kings, and thus Christ, false Christ, in that sense, but they're not religious. Anciently, yes, it was a theocracy in those days. But now in our days, you don't really see religious and government together like Reese's peanut butter cups. They're separated. And so that's important to understand as well. Okay. Alright, so identities, check. Okay, next phase. In the language of the Egyptians, they understood that the Messiah, whose name was Horus, has symbolisms attached to him in his stories to help us understand the events of the latter days, with the signs in the heavens accompanying them. So Horus has two eyes. They are the eyes of Horus, and they are the word in Egyptian for seer. which is Peter, P-T-R, no vowels. And the right eye is the symbol of the sun. Left eye is the symbol of the moon. The sun for government, the moon for religion. The religious calendar was based off the lunar cycle, and the civil calendar 365 days of the year for the cycle of the sun. And that is important in interpreting or revealing the signs in the heavens, because we have to identify the various characters. And so the sun represents government authority, the moon represents religious authority. And it was Wilford Woodruff who told us, which is hilarious when you know the real church history, that the church will not tell us. I have dinner baking in the oven, so I need to keep track of the time. I'm good for now. I have 12 minutes, 11 minutes. He says, "The Lord will never permit me or any other man who stands as president of this church," this is official declaration number 1, "to lead you astray. It is not in the program. It is not in the mind of God. If I were to attempt that, the Lord would remove me out of my place. And so he will any other man who attempts to lead the children of men astray from the oracles of God and from their duty." So this is the identity of the great and abominable church. The signs in the heavens will be falling moons, lunar eclipses, in connection with the deaths of any president of the church who leads Mormons astray, which would be those of the great and abominable church. And so, the identity of the great and abominable church I now present to you with, as I'm readjusting this, I didn't have this originally set in. This just all of a sudden, spur of the moment, oh yeah, we should probably do this. Brigham Young. Notice I have Joseph Smith on there, because I was checking him too, and yes, a total lunar eclipse associated with Joseph Smith, but he was assassinated. It wasn't natural cause, thus God. It was man who caused it. But as far as we know, Brigham to Monson, as far as we know, as far as we're being told, and if you've seen my videos, you'll know of some that are questionable. But yeah, they died in connection with lunar eclipses. Wilford Woodruff, in between two. He was special. He's the one who gave us this clue for us to check and verify, so that we as Mormons will not be deceived and led astray, that we will know the great and abominable church as outlined in the Book of Mormon. Because this is the sign in the heavens, the lunar eclipses. The events on earth they have their signs and secret signs from Helaman chapter 6, with their secret words and their covenants of secrecy, of murder, blood oath atonements, to overthrow America and the rest of the world so that they will be the rulers instead of the true Christ. And their secret sign will be on the keystone of their temple at their headquarters, which will be the falling star of Lucifer. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? Which is Venus, the inverted pentagram. And it talks about how this church, the Great and Abominable Church, will put the Mormons in bondage, and that they will be filthy rich, neglect the poor, have polygamy, have all sorts of sexual crimes and other crimes, and real bad dudes, and we will know them by the sign in the heavens and the events on earth. So I now present to you this segment of the identity of the Great and Abominable Church. And the United States shut down this church in 1887, and yet the church still continued to claim presidency of succession, whereas there were others who separated themselves and formed their own religion as branch-offs. And we can see the elements of that original church. And notice I'm being vague in general, but I've already put up the pictures, as I will, but have for you. It's a prophecy looking into the past of things I'm going to do that have been done. Mormonism is so complicated into the English language, which was the worst language in the whole history of the universe. And so, why can't I just put, and it shall come to pass, to make it a whole lot simpler. And so, yes, the current president of the Great and Abominable Church, the current Christ of that church, who doesn't claim to be the Christ, he claims another God. Because, again, the Book of Mormon is very detailed on how to identify them. They present idol gods to the Mormons to try to deceive the Mormons. They are racist, sexist, white supremacist, bigots who hate the poor. It'll be blatantly easy and obvious to identify the Great and Abominable Church if you hold to the iron rod, the Book of Mormon. And it's important to know because we're in the latter days. And so, the church, the Great and Abominable Church, was started up again in 1923. So the current false Christ is number 11, not number 17, as they want to claim. And so the coming conference that they're going to hold is way back at like 89, I think I calculated. We can quickly do it again. It'd be 1924, and then 2022, and so 98th session of their general conference, rather than the 100 whatever from 18. I can quickly do the math on that too. They'll claim, so this is a prophecy, guys. I'm giving you a prophecy by which you may know the Great and Abominable Church. Here it is, guys. They will claim that their conference for this April will be I'm confused. Yeah, that's right. The 192nd General Conference. So, be aware of this, and you'll see Luciferian numbers involved, because the next false Christ would be number 18, and that's 3 6s, 666 from Revelation, the number of the beast. And so they would claim 180 years from when Joseph Smith formed the Relief Society, they would be having their 180th, another prophecy, guys. I'm making a prediction. The prophecy, the Great and Abominable Church, for this April conference, will have their 180th celebration of Relief Society, when that's not the case. Just like the leadership is not the case. Just like the conferences are not the case. But they'll still claim it, because 18 in 180 is 666. And they purposely altered the timing of the Women's Relief Society span to be 5 years at just the right date to make it the 180th session for this year. So 666, inverted pentagram, falling stars, Lucifer, evil, darkness, blood and horror, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. Easy to identify so that nobody can be confused. But they will rage. The Mormons who believe are going to be upset. That's what they do. They brainwash you into thinking they're the true church, and will deceive Mormons who will rage to defend this Luciferian church. So. So this is going to be the last segment before I call it a day, and we'll resume this tomorrow. I'll save what I have and restore it to work on it tomorrow. The identity of the Mormon Christ, not Jesus. As all Scripture testifies of him. Jacob. It's in Jacob 7, isn't it? Yeah, talking with the Antichrist Sherem, Jacob talks about how the Scriptures all testify of the coming of this Latter-day Christ. If I can find which verse in Jacob chapter 7. And it's before Brethren Adieu, which is the mystic tie. Let's see. God smite me. Here it is. Verse 10. He asks, Believest thou the Scriptures? And Sherem says, Yea. And 11. And I said unto him, Then ye do not understand them, for they truly testify of the great and abominable church, and of the Christ. Behold, I say unto you that none of the prophets have written nor prophesied, save they have spoken concerning of this Christ. And so, to cut it short, rather than going over all the prophecies of all the prophets, we'll cut it short, as this video is already 52 minutes without this segment put in. his name is he who is from the crossroads of salvation, Wagoner, sun god. He's a Hebrew, which means son of God. A descendant of King David, a descendant of Ephraim, and thus through Judah, as well as through Jacob the usurper, through Joseph Smith Sr., through Hiram. His parents were sealed in the Los Angeles temple. His mother's name is Judith. His father's name is Wagoner, sun god. The name of his father, same name. His temple also will be the Los Angeles temple, and his new name will be Nephi. Born March 17th, 1970, in the San Francisco area. He will reside in Oakland, California. Born in the twilight, morning. Let's see, he will be large of stature. He travels to Michigan as a kid. Will travel again to a land where he goes to the top of the mountains. He will have prophecy dreams. He will be an Eagle Scout. He will be educated not just in the Great and Abominable Church, but also in the Northern Crown. And there's a dualism there. He will go on a mission. That's where he gets his new name from. He will be married twice, both failed. His second wife will be at the Salt Lake Temple, room number 13, as his marriage for the first wife, the first failed marriage, would be on Friday the 13th. His lucky number ever since he turns 13 was 13, and so he is often associated with the number 13 in athletic events. The wedding feast with the second ex would be at the Lion House, next to the Beehive House, and she would cut his hair and betray him to the Philistines, Great and Abominable Church. The Great and Abominable Church will have him arrested, like Abinadi, and like Joseph, and Joseph Smith, Joseph of Egypt, Joseph Smith, and others, even Jesus. He'll be wrongfully accused. The laws of the land will be violated to have him locked up. But he will come out of the prison. Is that an emergency vehicle? Somebody having an emergency? Because it's a Saturday at 5 in the evening. I need to go check this. But he will know Hebrew and Egyptian. He will be recognizable by his fruits as a prophet, seer, revelator, and translator. So the Mormons will not be deceived, because the false Christ, who will pretend and imitate prophet, seer, revelator, and translator, and president of the church, which is the key of Moses, not Peter, will have no fruit that will demonstrate that he is legitimate. And so you will know the true Christ of Mormonism by him who has the fruits of prophecy, seership, revelation, and translation. Those are all scientific fields, making predictions, seeing into the past, knowing the future, seeing the present, and seeing the future. So correcting church history, correcting church doctrine. He's supposed to restore the temple, so he will know exactly the original rituals from the Egyptian religion, to know how to restore the temple rituals from the great and abominable church. And reveal the signs in the heavens for you. Amos 3:7, surely the Lord God will do nothing, save he shall reveal the secrets unto his servants the prophets. He will warn the Mormons of the dangers of the great and abominable church and of the latter days. And if you hearken to him, you'll save your life. If you don't, you die. And so translator Hebrew and Egyptian will know Hebrew and Egyptian, and you'll know him by his fruits. Also as a kid, referring to the book of Jasher, the prophecy there, he will burn his tongue on a coal, hot burning coal, and blister his left thumb. What else can I bring out for you, according to the prophecies, or is that sufficient? Yeah, he will have restored, with the knowledge of Hebrew and Egyptian, he will have restored the Bible, Ezekiel 37, with the Egyptian documents, just like the brass plates in the Book of Mormon talks about. And so, yeah, he'll have done that. Yeah, okay. And so, various jobs and events in his life that would help people know him, but yeah, I think that's about it. And so, yeah, there were signs in the heavens for his birthday, as well as for his coming, that we will be going over. So I probably should make sure to put his birth sign in the heavens in here for you. And I forgot to mention the most important part of it. He will eventually move to Utah, top of the mountains, where he will be betrayed by his brethren, the Mormons, where he'll be arrested and persecuted, and thus the wounds in his hands and in his feet that he will experience and go through, and yeah, that's where the Exodus will occur. That's where he will confront the great and abominable church in a court of law. Not just him getting locked up, but wrongfully, but he will also, as Moses did, come to sue in Pharaoh's court. And so he will do that as well. So you're looking for somebody who sues the great and abominable church, and continually is told, no, no, no. But I like it. Be good, be good, be good, be good, be good. Be good, Johnny. So, yeah. It's snowing outside. Bad enough that I will not be able to run tomorrow morning. So, I'll at least do one more segment. Let's see how things go. Since it looks like I can sleep in, whether my body allows it or not. So we're on the forerunner signs, the pre-show signs in the heavens and events on earth. And everybody in the church, even ex-Mormons, know the significance of the tetrad of 2014-2015 because of Chad Daybell that emerged from that, with President Monson denouncing that as a latter-day sign in heaven. Nothing to see here, move along. We always tell you guys to have supplies on hand for emergencies. Oh yeah? For the rest of our life emergencies? How does that fit into the church? We'll make sure that all Mormons prosper with their fire insurance for the latter-day burning. So already I recognize I've got a different manner of presentation in this segment than I do the previous ones. I've changed. I'm not the same. So the signs in the heavens, I gave you because I'm the one who went beyond. Astronomers only connect the dots to full lunar eclipses in a 2-year period of time, twice each year. Whereas I have recognized that you're supposed to include the solar eclipses that are with it. But in 2014-2015, they occurred on Jewish holy days of Passover and Tabernacles. Passover is the Exodus from Moses. Tabernacles is the gathering, which has to do with the Exodus, gathering everybody from all over the world and exiting the world to come to Zion. All having to do with latter days. And to have them on Jewish holy days is very, very rare, let alone tetrads. Because we didn't have another one until right now, and even this one is not on Jewish holy days, except for one. It was the Solar Eclipse, or Loom. What was on December 4th? It was a solar, yeah. And then occurred in conjunction with Joseph Smith translation of Revelation chapter 12, verse 4. That's right. So yes, there was a sun darkening, moon turned to blood, stars falling from heaven before the latter days, to usher in the latter days, get everything set up and prepared for it, because Harry Packer Scott died. And with Packer dying, Nelson takes over as the president of the Quorum of 12, putting him in pole position for the presidency of the church. So it's not a coincidence, as much as I cannot explain it scientifically. Because Revelation chapter 12 talks about 10 stars on the head of the Virgin, which would be in Leo, which was designated with only 9 stars. Yeah, crown of 12 stars on her head, which means 3 roaming planets, and there are only 5 visible ones, so there's 2 others left, and one of them is in the womb being born of the Virgin, which we know is Jupiter, because it retrogrades for a pregnancy period in each constellation. And so about 10 years it gets through all 12 of the zodiac, plus or minus, because the year that the Mormon Christ of the latter days was born, born in that Jupiter is being born out of Virgo. And so, Jupiter is the Mormon Christ association and the sign in the heavens, in case it didn't mention it or you didn't catch on. And so the identification of the 5th, so that we know the identity of the 3, we're jumping the gun, aren't we? We're jumping the gun. We're not there yet. We're doing 2014, 2015. Maybe I should go to bed. Okay. And so, yes, 3 additional planets need to join in Leo. And this is a very precise date, which we're coming to for the 23rd September 2017. And so, yes, this 2014-2015, which the 3rd lunar eclipse occurred Saturday morning of conference. I remember that, and I went, oh, crap. I was thinking, that's significant. And sure enough, the deaths of the 3 apostles. And so I went, oh, okay, that fits the pattern that I knew from when Faust and Hinckley died. And then I did the video not too long ago, not too many months ago, I think it was last year, where I checked the full sign in the heavens for Hinckley and Faust's death, and they were a combo. They were a tuplet, whatever it's called, a duplet. They were reversing of each other. That was weird. But now. And so for 2014 to begin this is significant, but there's more involved, as this most likely is overwhelming you already with the concept of a human Christ, that Joseph Smith was a Christ, But Wikipedia, everybody back then referred to Brigham Young as the Mormon Moses. And so they knew he was the Christ. And yet, since that time, that knowledge has been stripped from Mormon minds, as only certain people like Brian David Mitchell understand it. And then he obviously went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, committed crimes, serious, severe crimes, just like Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow. As she likewise thought she was a goddess and the kids were zombies for the zombie apocalypse. They're god guys. So yeah, 2014, 2015 was setting things in motion to let Mormons know, hey guys, it's coming, because they're not associated with any other church. Are you noticing this? The lunar eclipses are for the Great and Abominable Church presidents. And yes, Hinckley and Faust with a reverse pattern, not just Hinckley. And then Thomas S. Monson. Oh dear God. But we're coming to him. We'll get more into his. And so, yeah, this is blatantly in Mormons' faces. And ex-Mormons, you guys should be paying attention. The Mormon church was your church too, and you left the church because you knew it was the Great and Abominable Church, but you're not calling it the Great and Abominable Church because you don't believe the Book of Mormon is true. I really need to get to bed. So, yeah, that's what was going on there. The other picture that I have, and of course you'll have to blow up the picture. That's for my... Okay. I had one of my subscribers email me a Stellarium video from this morning at 7 a.m. as they were wondering what that roaming object out of the zodiac. It was coming down a different way, and it's that SpaceX Crew Dragon thing. So that was kind of cool to see that in the Stellarium. Alright. So on the 12th of October 2015, and I can't remember, it would have to be, well, yeah, that's the new moon. Okay, never mind. Because new moons and full moons are indicative of when events are official. And so I watch for that. If you've seen my videos lately, you'll see that the last day was when the new moon occurred. All right there at the waterfall for the fulfillment of the oath. And we're still waiting for it. And then I found, oh, okay, yeah, the moon will be in Aries for tomorrow into Monday. And so we'll have to see if anything is fulfilled on an event on Earth because of the sign in the heavens. That a real long one here, because I did a countdown video series for it. And some stuff have happened during the process, but like Nelson doing his California talk was a fulfillment of the Mars and Venus day. care about people. So, yeah, you'll see the moon and the sun, the new moon and the sun, right there, beginning to exit the virgin's womb. They're being born, and so, yeah, new moon, new baby, being born. This was in 2015. This is after the tetrad, after the deaths of the three, setting in motion for the events, because we just held conference the beginning of October, and then now we have the official sign in the heavens of that event, where Mercury is on the shoulder of Virgo, and then three of the visible planets, Jupiter, Mars, and then Venus. Yeah, that's the order of them. At the feet of Leo the lion, after Regulus. And Regulus does play a significance in future stuff we're going to go over. And so this was a sign of the fulfillment of the tetrad and the events on Earth that occurred. It was this sign right here on the 12th of October 2015. And so notice it's during the daytime. My stellarium allows me to see daytime as if night. I could change it to show it what it would look like during the daytime, which would be a light blue screen and won't be able to see anything other than the sun. So, yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else. I don't think so. So, again, understand Joseph Smith's Revelation 12:1, Joseph Smith translation, Revelation 12:1, signs in the heavens, likeness of things on the earth, happened. That's why I'm going over here with you on this, is that it is scientifically working. The test theory, the theory test, is happening. According to the sign and the meaning of the sign, the events on earth, according to the meaning of the sign in the heavens, is happening. And so the three new apostles are the representation of Jupiter, Mars, and Venus for that instance. But the conception changes the identity of Jupiter. And then a certain presidential election changes the identity of another planet, and Mars. Mars is actually one of the identities here, way back in 2015. So, I'm sure you already know the spoiler alert for that one. As it takes on a dual purpose, because three have to be added, but one already in the 9 remaining becomes the president, and he's the one to watch for, because this is all part and parcel of the latter-day prophecies. Alright, so every comic book hero has an origin story, and the latest thing in Hollywood right now is to do villain origin stories. Even in Disney characters, Cruella de Vil, Cruel Devil, had her origin story movie, for example, which I really liked. And so you need to understand that there's no need for a hero unless there's a villain. There's no need for Superman if there's no Lex Luthor. Or Brainiac, if you've seen Superman's grandfather movie or TV show. I'm kind of disappointed that they thought that because everybody was concerned about what was going on in Pittsburgh that night, that we're on the internet. People can watch it anytime they want. Dear God, cancel the show. So upset. I mean, they even had Ra as their head god. How awesome is that? You know, Carl L, the House of L. Big mistake they made. Nevertheless, notwithstanding. We have Emmanuel, who is the superhero of the Isaiah story. That is the name. And in Isaiah 7:14, which is also in the Book of Mormon, we have, therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign in the heavens. Behold, a virgin shall conceive. Virgin is Virgo. And she's going to be impregnated. So there's going to be a time where she will be impregnated. And according to the signs in the heavens and the likeness of things on the earth, this is the latter days beginning or birth. And so John in Revelation chapter 12 gives us the birth date sign in the heavens, the beginning of the latter days. Thus the conception is a pregnancy period before this. And the firstborn often is a little bit longer, depending on the mother, depending on the baby. And so sometimes it can go 10 months instead of 9 months. And usually if it's less than 8 months or 9 months, you know that the parents had a good time and tried to cover it up as best they could. But in this particular case, we're talking about a star sign, and Jupiter is the one planet, because of its position in our solar system from viewing on Earth, retrogrades in each constellation for about a pregnancy period. Thus, the whole 12 zodiac signs takes plus or minus a year with or months in a 10-year period of time. And so Jupiter is the child. He is Emmanuel. He is Zeus in the Greeks, Jupiter in the Romans. And he is the sun deity, a solar deity, just like Amun of the Egyptians. Amun El. This is what Isaiah is referring to. And so we need to find a star date for the conception. And I should have done it first before doing this clip. So, since we know in advance the birth being 23rd September 2017, we're looking for a conception. And the conception will be in consequence to the villain of the story rising. And so, do we merge these together or do we do different stuff? Okay, I'm winging this, guys. I had an idea and now I'm winging it to try to do what the idea in my head told me. So yeah, since we'll do it in order, the villain is necessary. So we'll come back to the hero that is conceived in the signs in heaven. And so the villain of the story. Now remember, I've talked to you about how we are not a theocracy in America. Religion and government are separated. So now there's two who are villains of the latter days. The beast and the false prophet. The beast is the king, false prophet of the great and abominable church, according to John. So we need to find something that would give us a clue as to the rise of the villain of the story. I wonder if the Book of Mormon, the keystone of Mormonism, has anything to say about it. Well, let's just randomly read a random scripture that I will randomly select. 1 Nephi chapter 1, verse 4. For it came to pass in the commencement of the first year of the reign of Zedekiah, king of Judah. Yeah, this is it. This is the villain of the story. This is the beast of John. The puppet king on American government in the first year of the latter days. And we know this, it's confirmed. Lehi has a vision in which he sees the first and last dates, star dates. He sees signs in the heavens from Revelation that I've already given you. God sitting on his throne, which Joseph Smith translation moves that passage in Revelation 12, verse 5, to verse 3, so that it's part of the birth sign, which is correct. I have confirmed it with the stellarium. And so I need to do 2 star dates, or star pictures, for the origin of the beast and the origin of the hero, the beginning of the latter days. And so in America, presidents are voted in on election day in November, the first Tuesday of the month. And so, unless the first Tuesday is Monday, or the first, and they move it to the 8th. But otherwise, regardless. And so you have an election in 2016. Because if 2017 is the first year of the latter days, that's when presidents are sworn in. Thus, the election is when he became a puppet king. Zedekiah is a puppet king. Babylon conquered Jerusalem, removed the previous king, put Zedekiah on the throne to give tribute to Babylon. He wouldn't. He was warned by Jeremiah. Babylon came back and destroyed Jerusalem. That's the context which we are being told here in the Book of Mormon. But the signs in the heavens give us dates for the latter days. But the story says that those star dates have to do with the destruction of Jerusalem and a puppet king in the first year. See how this is working? And so, yeah, we need the picture. I can do it from memory. This is where signs in the heaven and the likeness of things on the earth. So we need to identify the government leader beast sign, and that is Mercury. Because when the election was finally decided, Mercury was at the top of the scales of Libra. Libra in Egyptian, language of the Egyptians, is the scales of Ma'at, truth, order, justice, the American way, Superman. And at the top of the scales of Libra is Ma'at in one of her forms, whether her head or her feather plume, whatever, to represent that she is in charge of the judging. She's overseeing it. So when a celestial body is at the top of the scales of Libra, they become the judge. They become the governor, the one in charge. And this is important because it is confirmed when Monson dies. We're coming to it. And so, yes, Mercury is confirmed on election night when it's decided, because it took some time. There was some controversy. There was a certain candidate who should not have conceded. Nonetheless, she did, and now she's regretting it. Especially since that puppet king is trying to lock her up. Despite winning as a puppet king. And despite certain news agencies claiming that the certain asterisk 45 was legitimate, it has become clearer and clearer, despite the attempted cover-ups and redactions, that yes, indeed, there was voter fraud. And so no wonder that they claim voter fraud for 2020. But that may need to be put in this video. So hold on, because that's in 3 Nephi chapter 7. Having an allergy attack. And so Mercury, you can see, is at the top of the scales of Libra, and thus the origin story of the beast of the latter days. The origin story of the false prophet is coming. Because he's already been set up, and after these origin stories, before we get into the in the first year, we have something that identifies the hero as well. Alright, so enough teasing. So this is a perfect explanation of why one keeps records and does them first before speaking, referring to the past. Correction, the election day was, as I said, on the 8th. Got that part right. But the 3rd, on Thursday, was when Mercury was at the top of the scales of Libra. And on the 8th, for election day, the sun is at the top of the scales of Libra, as Mercury is being weighed in the balance. Better symbolism for what took place, and does conform to the Book of Mormon, which is scriptural prophecy, warning us of that event for that election that year. You understand what the Book of Mormon knows. When you understand real church history, you understand why the Smiths did what they did to make sure that the Book of Mormon got published as written. They had national security intel that their lives were in danger for possessing, and needed a manner in which to disseminate it to the public, to warn the public of what is plotted to destroy America, not Jerusalem. And so, despite the altered definition of conspiracy theory, there is credibility to Ingersoll. I can't remember his first name. Is it John Ingersoll? A publisher in the 1900s, had The Last President and the Marvelous Adventures of is it John Barron? Or no, Barron Trump. That's right. And we know Trump knows about this because of Melania's son, Barron, plus the Forbes call that was leaked by the guy from Forbes, where Trump pretends to be John Barron, which John is Trump's middle name, and uses Barron. And tries to get on the Forbes magazine, succeeds in this, and then uses that magazine while Melania was giving birth to Barron Trump, or well, after she had Barron Trump, and he was out carousing and picked up the porn star, and that big scandal and lawsuits that ensued with the non-disclosure agreements. That was the newspaper he used to smack her on her ass, that got her up to his apartment room, where she then realized, oh, I did it again. I thought we were just doing stuff for fun, frivolity, and oh, it's just part of my career. Yeah. That big old story. That big old drama. Drama. So the presidency is being judged. The government symbol of the sun is the judge. You see how this works? I did a pan and scan, or a widescreen coverage of the whole scene for you. There were falling stars all over the place on the other side of the earth while this was going on. Over in Taurus, Aries, and even Leo. So you see Jupiter, that's the hero of our story. He's been swallowed. That's the sky concept of pregnation. He has not been conceived yet in the womb. That's coming. That's next. But the moon for religion. Anybody familiar with section 85? Verse 7. His bowels shall be a fountain of truth, to set in order the house of God, the temple. And there's the moon, religion, in the bowels of the fountain of truth, Aquarius, the high priest symbol. It's around first quarter moon. That can be verified with time and date. Might as well do it, I guess, since we're doing the video. Date. Seriously? Why did you disappear? 7th into the 8th, it's showing for the first quarter. I saw it on my stellarium when I had it on the moon. And notice where Mars is. Yeah, it's leaving the tail of Sagittarius and heading for the mouth of the goat beast of Lucifer. Mars, huh? It's now been the president of the Quorum of the 12 for a year now. And it's heading for the mouth of the goat beast? Interesting. Let's see. Venus, is it? Venus is the god. Yes, Venus is at the every knee shall bow, every tongue confess that Emmanuel is the Christ. And it's on the tail of the serpent. That's the area considered the tail of the serpent, whereas Saturn is there at the throne of God, all ready and set, because it's going to be there at the birth. That's the throne of God, Ophiuchus. And Saturn has made his position, the throne of God, God sitting on his throne over all of this. As the moon is in Jupiter, the bowels, the fountain of truth, high priest, the sun at the scales of judgment as the judge for government, with Mercury being decided on the scales of judgment and being judged. It's election time. And so it's this last election that we had where the Mercury reached the top of the scales of judgment on the day when they decided it. Just so you know my error that I made. Alrighty, and then that is that for that and this. Let's make sure I get this section right. The hero origin story. So now that the villain of government has emerged, the future king to restore the kingdom from the fallen government and religion, as the enemy that the Smiths are warning about are going to overthrow the government. That is the threat to the government. And so Joseph Smith talked about Mormons needing to save the government. And so why then is our church saying that the government are going to hand over the government to the church? Can you say great and abominable church, boys and girls? Very good. And so we're looking for a full moon. for the start of conception from Isaiah. The government shall be upon his shoulders as the birth sign. Coming to that. And the government shall be upon his shoulders. He's given us the sign. And John in Revelation goes further with that. And so you see Jupiter. It's trying to come alive. Is now conceived with the full moon. It was a super moon even. And the sun is now being weighed in the scales of Libra. It is no longer the judge. It is now being weighed. And Jupiter is now conceived. And you can see Leo has the Leonids, the falling stars, right by the eye. And then there's a whole string of falling stars over by the moon. The moon, yeah. Which is in the Taurus constellation, which is being trampled by Taurus, because the Jupiter is going to trample the government and the religion and restore it in the scriptural metaphoric usage. And so you see the falling stars with that trampling where the moon is located at conception. Taurus also is related to the Apis bull of the Egyptians for the transfer of authority from king to the son, who is to restore the kingdom and become the father. The father becomes the son becomes the father. The immortal words of Marlon Brando, the father of Jor-El, is it? Or is that the name of the grandfather? But yeah, the House of El, not a coincidence. Him coming from outer space to Earth to save mankind, not a coincidence. KKK, not a coincidence, in the least phonetics. Clark Kent, Kal-El, he comes through the great and abominable church to save. That is the enemy. To restore peace, justice, and the American way. And so the author, or the creators and authors of Superman, they knew what they were talking about when they were doing this. And so when Superman has a baby, everybody threw a fit. Are you sure? He was acquitted, by the way, and yet SNL and others in Hollywood still are condemning him as if he's guilty. We're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. He was never proven guilty. And if you're just going to assume that he got away with his crime and our justice system has failed, you might have a point. But nonetheless, you've destroyed his life and career when he has been acquitted. And he was a brilliant actor. So, nonetheless, there were others during that scandal year who were guilty, and then others who wanted attention, so they paid to being on the latest popular show wasn't good enough for them. Alright, so yes, this is what Isaiah is referring to. A woman, a virgin, shall conceive and bear a son, which is coming up. So this is the conception. And there's only a need for a conception if you have the origin of the villain emerging to threaten the lives of the people. And so deliver us, the prayers of the people, deliver us from this beast that is upon us. And so then God then consents. Now this is the sign in the heavens for the event on earth. And so Mormons are supposed to be looking for this. They're supposed to see that, oh, our Christ has now been conceived in preparation for the latter days, not as a baby, but for the start of the latter days. They just had 3 prophets die and be replaced as the new president of the Quorum of the 12 takes over the church. And it's now been a year, and we now have an election where it's a puppet president. And now we have the origin story of the hero of Mormonism, Captain Moroni. He goes and saves the government from the kingmen who seek to overthrow the constitution of the Nephites of Mosiah. Did you not see the parallel? That's what Joseph Smith was talking about. Mormons are supposed to follow Captain Moroni to save America from the overthrow of America. And yet our church is saying, oh, there's nothing we can do. We can't be good enough to save the world. We have to just let it happen. And ignore the fact that we paid for all this destruction and chaos and overthrow. Just submit. Like Ukraine, we told Ukraine, just submit. We paid Russia to overthrow you, so just submit. That's our first presidency statement on war. Just like we did in Nazi Germany's World War II. Just submit, let Hitler do what he wants. We're anti-communism. Literally, the church was anti-communist during that time. Oh, we're against communism. And then they continued it into the McCarthy era. We're against communism. We've been against communism this whole time during the whole war. And nobody understands what that means. It means they were Nazi. Great and Abominable Church is Nazi. They're the villains. But there were still villains that were left behind in the Democrat Party too. As the real history of the world and the United States incorporated with the church history helps us understand what happened. Because once they're exposed and stopped, they have people who leave and go form other groups or go infiltrate other groups. And I've done the trail of all the movements of this enemy nation, of the inverted pentagram of Lucifer, which is now wrongly called gone, nothing to worry about. They were just a myth anyway. No, the Great and Abominable Church is evidence. It's still around, and it is involved in all that's going on for these latter days. So, thus the need for the hero. Now, again, he's after the learning of the Jews. Isaiah, the learning of the Jews, the prophesying of the Jews. He's not talking about Jesus. This is a mortal man, mortal parents, which means he will make mistakes, need to correct some things. He won't be a cold-hearted sinner Mormon, criminal Mormon, who will murder to get gain. No, those are the bad guys. He's the good guy. But he will come out of the Great and Abominable Church. So, next,